for an incredible night. Oh, we're taking it up a notch.
I'm one of those people that moves my entire life forward on how I feel. So if I was going to do a business, it had to be the ultimate experience. If the client understands the feeling out the other end, they will buy into it every day of the week because they understand it. If they don't, we're never going to be the right brand for them. And we did that wedding fair and came out with about 4,000 inquiries from
4,000 inquiries?
Yeah, we booked 3 years worth of work
off that one wedding fair.
One weekend.
Hey, be sure you stick around because we're only getting warmed up.
If you have that inner belief, you can quite quickly make other people buy into that.
Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Think Wedding Business. Today's going to be a great one. I've got to start with this. Going to leave with this intro that I've prepared. Right. How do you go from a dream to creating the coolest, most recognised entertainment company in the competitive world of weddings? Well, today we have the man who's done just that, and he's here to tell us all about it and how he stays at the top of such a competitive market. Dax on sax! Can I call you Dax on sax?
You can call me Dax on sax, Dax. Just not the formal name, Daniel Smith. We'll stick with the artiste.
I don't think I even knew your name before today. I've always called you Dax. Can we say Dan?
Stick with Dax.
Stick with Dax. So Dax, for you who don't know, he fronts a super cool entertainment company called 615, and they are massive in the world of weddings, pretty much worldwide. Is that right to say that?
Yeah.
Definitely worldwide. And from where it all started, what a journey it's been, and I can't wait to hear all of that. And I know a little bit of it because I think I was a little part of it many years ago.
You were.
So yeah, thanks for being here, mate.
Thank you
and
so
sharing,
much for coming down to 615 HQ here in Preston.
We've got mugs.
Don't
get this at Winghouse.
I haven't got a mug, so you are privileged.
There's only two in the building.
Yeah. But thank you for your time, and thank you for inviting me onto your podcast today.
Yes. Oh, I did say sax player, so people know that his core thing at the very start was playing sax, and now it's evolved. It's evolved.
Do your little line about Blackpool.
Well, I'm going to do, but first of all, we've got one very, very serious question, and that question is, can you play the Pink Panther?
Unfortunately, yes.
God, I'd be so disappointed.
Still.
I honestly wondered where he was going with that.
Baker Street.
Yes. Yeah. That's still a thing.
Well, that's all right. We don't need to know anything else. Should we just go now?
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Right. All right. So, it's all about the business side of it, helping people, sharing inspirational journeys between the people that we interview, and you are certainly one of those inspirational people with an inspirational journey, without a doubt. So I'm gonna kick off with this one. So how does that guy that I saw playing the little bar in Blackpool all those years ago, God, I feel old saying that now, get to being an international star fronting one of the biggest and definitely the coolest wedding and corporate entertainment companies today? Let's just take it back to the beginning. How did it all start? And what things have you done to get where you are today? I know that's a massive broad question.
It's a really broad question.
Let's just go right from the start.
If you go back 10 years, I don't know if many people know, I started playing sax I've always played from the age of 7. So the music has been a big part of my life. My dad was involved in theatre, my mum was involved in theatre, that's how they met. So there's always been a big music route to my upbringing. I then got to the age of 18 and thought, right, the music piece is done, it's out of the way, it's ticked, I'm going to go and do a law degree. So I thought, we're going to go and tick the dot the I's, cross the X's, and go into some form of professional life.
Yeah.
Went and did a law
do
degree.
the typical route.
Yeah, so I did a law
job.
degree. 3 years, Sheffield. And then I went to Switzerland for a job, and then worked for a bank back in the UK. And at that point, I knew that I'd not really had music in my life for a period of about 4 years, and I just started to get asked to do a few little bits. Howard, you asked me to do a few bits. This was about the time that you saw me, and I've always listened to house music. I've always been interested and loved that side of things, and at the time, the house sax thing was starting to become a bit of a thing in Ibiza, and I just started picking up my sax, and I remember going to a bar called 137 in Blackpool, which is where the bar that you may be talking about.
Yeah, that's where Blueberries used to be.
Yes, it was.
Clothes shop before it. Yeah.
And I remember going in, and I just wanted to play my sax. There was nothing more to it, and I remember saying to Gav, would you mind if I just got my sax and just played over the DJ set? There was no money involved. I had a couple of beers, and I did that for about 3 months. Just every Friday, Saturday, just rocked up and just played. And I started to get inquiries, as you do.
Yeah.
You asked me to do a few gigs. There was a couple of other people, and then what I'd learned from my professional world was how I could merge doing what I loved musically and turning it into a business. But I'm one of those people that moves my entire life forward on how I feel about any given situation. So if I was going to do a business, it had to be the ultimate experience. It had to be about great customer service, all the things that I knew I valued in my life. This business needed to be represent all the values that I have for myself.
All or nothing kind of person.
Yeah. So when I started to develop, say, my show, I wanted to really it wasn't just about me rocking up with a DJ. I wanted to go further than that. I wanted to have control over what were the tracks, what was the lighting doing, what were the sound, what's the stage, what all those elements that I knew changed the way somebody felt became really important.
Yeah, definitely.
So there became that's kind of how the business started. So I, in short, came out of a professional environment, started picking my sax up at the weekend, and then thought, right, how do I merge the two? I knew I couldn't do both. And I learned the skills that I learned from my degree, from the professional world, and then my love for the music that I've always had, and put them together.
I think that's because you've had that experience, you've had that structured, that corporate background. Everything's got to be perfect. As you said before, great customer service, logistics, and it's come together when you've merged the two.
Yeah.
And you thought, I'm not just going to go and be a sax player because I love doing sax, which we know you do, but you had all those other elements to kind of help you progress.
Yeah.
And run it as a really good, well-run business.
Yeah, and then the other side to that is my business partner, who is at the time, to this day is still.
Shout out to Tom DeLips, by the way.
Yeah. Massively pivotal in what this business was at the time, what it became, because Tom was in Manchester, in the Manchester scene. I wasn't. I was a young boy from Blackpool that had never been into the city at that point, really.
Yeah.
And we met through a mutual friend, Danny Howard, who's now Radio 1.
Right.
And then Tom took me under his wing. Name drop. But Tom took me under his wing, and that's where I started to get the club experience, and we definitely, between the two of us, thought, right, there's an opportunity here.
I think your timing was really good.
Yes.
Because there was a definitely, I mean, you probably know this as well, before you've actually even got into the weddings yourself, but there was a certain moment where DJing sax and the house music came into weddings, and it was like bang, everybody wanted that Ibiza. That Ibiza vibe at their wedding, that almost nightclub feel. It changed the way that night do's at weddings were, it might forever. And because you want that really cool immersive experience like you're in a nightclub. It's brilliant.
And
you were there right at the perfect time.
We were working in a lot of the venues. There's a specific venue that Tom and I worked at quite heavily called Neighbourhood in Manchester, which at the time when it launched was the biggest venue Manchester has ever seen. And I guess the one thing that venue did for our brand is people were going in that venue going, we want this experience
at our wedding.
And we got bombarded for that. But we also knew there were, like I said to you before, there were certain things that had to happen to enable that to be a thing. The sound had to be a certain way.
I've got to pause you and tell
Go
you a
on.
story about this.
Go
So
on.
he's talking about neighbourhood and playing. One of my brides, who I booked one of my weddings. I booked Dax to come and play during the drinks reception, and the night before her wedding, I think it was, I had a bride ring me up about midnight, totally pissed, and she was in the neighbourhood, and she said,
There's no way it was the night before a wedding. She was pissed in
"I'm
the neighbourhood.
pretty sure." Oh, it was close to it. I know her husband was out that time. Sorry, and she said, "I've seen the guy playing sax in the neighbourhood. Is this him?" And she literally, I can imagine her doing it, just putting her phone out like that, and you were playing.
Yeah.
And I was like, "How am I going to know that? It's midnight.
Yeah.
Is he called Dax?" She went, "Yeah, I think he's called Dax. That's the guy you got for your wedding." And she was buzzing.
Yeah.
But I think that the takeaway from that is spread yourself out, go to different places, and people will see you and they're going to want you for their wedding.
100%. And
You've got to do that.
You
Certainly
have
in your sector, I think.
yeah, that venue was a very special relationship for 615. We started, they opened, our brand started to gain traction, their brand started to gain traction, but people wanted that immersive experience at a wedding, and we knew we couldn't deliver that just taking one element out of that. So it definitely wasn't a case of we'll just take the sax out of that, or the percussion, or the DJ. It was a number of elements that made it the experience that we knew it needed to be.
Yeah, not just you playing the sax.
Yeah.
Was it 615 from the start, or was it Dax on sax?
No, so there was definitely the period of me gaining some stripes and just doing a few gigs, which was me.
Yeah.
So it was when you met Tom that you went together. We've got
because
something here.
we there wasn't the number of sax players that there are now. I think me and Tom at the time were the only two in delivering that type of thing, really, in the way that it probably was.
Yeah, I only knew of two back
Well,
then.
it's like you said. It was
Sax
you
players.
got lucky timing wise because it was just taking off. People were starting to discover this. Oh, I can have like a sax player with my DJ at my wedding and make it Ibiza and make it a bit of a party. I want that, and people. The more people started to see it, the more.
Well, really,
wanted
the
to
way
develop it.
I saw that and was lovely Laura in Ibiza, because I saw the videos circulating at the time. And I still keep in touch with Laura now, but she was definitely an inspo for me then to go, oh, I can merge my love for the house music and my playing and do the two. And I have always loved that type of music, so it was an easy thing for me, because I'm probably more into the music than I am the sax playing, I'll be brutally honest. So that's why playing the type of music that I play in the show is very probably different to most, because that music core, I'm very involved with what's played and how that's delivered. But it was an easy integration of merging two different worlds into one.
But you guys stood out from the start, like straight away, because your production level was so much like it started to become a thing, and I started to see at weddings when I started, and in the first couple of years, more and more DJ sax combos. The sax player would turn up, plug in, play sax. Great.
Yeah.
You guys went staging, lighting, production.
Because it comes back to
the big wide speakers.
And so
something
was it
different.
Was it your background playing in neighbourhood that made you realise that that's what it needed to be at our wedding?
Yeah, what I realised was everything that people loved about that neighbourhood environment, there was so much work that got it to that point, and we were not just rocking up. We were talking about what were the lighting sequences, what were the tracks, where was the performance space. All these things were acutely discussed, rehearsed, executed, reviewed, changed, until we came up with a product that worked. And we used the same thought process with that in our own business, which is why the production level of what we do is a specific way, because for us it's got to be ultimate experience or no experience. It has to be ultimate, and we knew we couldn't do it by taking any of those elements out, if that
Yeah,
makes
you've
sense.
certainly got that element of kind of perfection, or certainly striving for perfection, and it shows, you know,
Yeah.
without a doubt. And
In the wedding industry, because that is, you identified that that's what you had to do to make the experience that you wanted to deliver.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing that costs a lot more than you
It does. Yeah.
So did you find resistance on the pricing side of things from weddings? Because all of a sudden you were charging a lot more than probably most.
Yeah.
And obviously because the service was so much better and the product was so much better.
Yeah.
But it must have been a bit alien to a lot of brides
I think,
and grooms.
Yeah, it does come with its
How
problems.
much?
But I think for the client that values it, we're not looking, we as a business even now don't go for mass bookings. We are, if it's right for the client and they probably value going to Ibiza because they love and they understand how it makes them feel, that's probably our ideal client. If you're looking for, what I'm saying is, if the client understands the feeling out the other end,
yeah,
they will buy into it every day of the week because they understand it. If they don't, we're never going to be the right brand for them, and we'll be really upfront with them and say it's going to come. You know, our DJs, typically speaking, probably aren't wedding stereotypical DJs. They have been
club DJs kind of stuff.
Yeah, so they've been on the scene, and people maybe recognise some of that talent and go, "Oh, I can have that for my wedding." So I guess it's a different proposition in a way.
Yeah, I mean, when I used to sell Dave out for me, you know, he was a club background. And his song choices were amazing. He was brilliant, you know. And there's a massive difference between a wedding trained DJ and a club DJ with a decent club history. You know,
ultimately, what I know from the club world, which is where, you know, neighbourhood bar restaurant, but it's still a club environment. You know, our job in that environment is to keep people in. We wouldn't have been there if people were coming and going, leaving.
Mm-hmm.
So you learn quite quickly how to engage a dance floor quite easily, because that world, if you can't do that, the general manager of the venue's coming over to you going, listen mate, we're going to need to get somebody else in because people aren't staying in, we need to, you know, so it's relying.
They want the money behind the bar, don't they?
Yeah, so you've got to know, which is where the talent is very important for us.
Because a wedding crowd is the same as a crowd going out on a party on a night.
100%.
Because people are people, you know.
As a bride and groom, we want everyone on our dance floor all night. We don't want them to be disappearing.
Yeah.
So if we can book someone that can keep them there, happy days. But I think what you're saying is that people that have experienced it, they're emotionally connected to it. Price goes out the window.
It's the emotional connection to...
So do you find that most people that do book you,
it's
because they've seen you already?
Yeah, absolutely. It's because they've seen us already,
and they understand.
And because we are quite big on brand, I think you can look on the 615 Instagram page, for example, and you feel the brand through the content that we produce.
Yeah.
That's trying to get that message through in that way. It's got to be reflective of the experience too. So I think if you understand it and emotionally connect with it, which is what we try and do across every element, it's for the right person. It's the right product.
Yeah, I mean, we talk quite a lot, don't we, about how to find the right client. I think you're in them places where them clients are going to sort of gravitate to you, and they want that, and they've got the money. You're in the right places. I'm going to take it out a little bit earlier. So you'd got the buzz. You know the wedding market is where you want to be. This is a good place to be. Right at the early days, you want to go and get wedding bookings. What were some of the things that you were doing at the very start to go out and get bookings at weddings? You come from the bank, you're in the bar, you've got to a couple of venues. What sort of strategies did you employ to try and get your first wedding gigs?
Ours was a little bit different. So I did a few gigs with yourself, did a few gigs with a couple of other people, and really interestingly, there was a gig that will always sit in my mind. I did a gig in Liverpool. Somebody booked me off the back of Neighbourhood, and I turned up, and the DJ said to me, "Have you got your mixtape?" And I looked at him, I was like, "No, I haven't." And I knew that the client was expecting what they'd seen in Neighbourhood, And I was like, I'm not going to be able to deliver this. And I walked out that gig and thought, I can't ever do that again. I can't be in that position. So me and Tom spoke, and I don't know if you ever remember Tatton Wedding Fair.
Yeah.
Mm.
We took a massive risk, and we both quit our jobs, and we went hell for leather with Tatton Wedding Fair.
Because it's
Literally.
not cheap, everybody knows. It's not a
Expensive.
cheap wedding fair to do. It's
We
very
were like,
high end.
this is
isn't it?
going to finish us off.
Or it's going to make us.
And we had a stand, and it cost us a fortune. We took a loan out to buy the big fancy white speakers that you saw. We took a loan through the business. We did Tatton Wedding Fair, and I think we went into, within the space, we quit our jobs at the beginning of January. Tatton Wedding Fair was at the end of January, so it was literally a month. All our work up to that point was club based, so we were doing an odd few wedding bits.
Yeah.
We thought, right, we're going to go and do Tatton Wedding Fair, but it needs to be big, so we knew we needed a big space for the production, etc. And we did that wedding fair and came out with about 4,000 inquiries from that
4,000
week.
inquiries.
Yeah.
Nice.
And we booked 3 years worth of work
Off that one
off
wedding fair.
one weekend, and that was it.
There you go. There's the answer, guys. There's the answer. The right wedding fair with the right people, because the Tatton is quite a high end, isn't it?
You're
You're not going to get
never
your...
seen anything like that though.
You-
At that
you go-
wedding fair before.
No, probably not. No,
we got a lot of resistance going in because I knew that to deliver the wedding fair we had to do it on our way. 615 is loud, it's in your face, it's
Yeah.
all those things, brand, and we couldn't do it where it was quiet. So we went in and we were all those things, loud, disruptive, da, da, da. But it worked, and we went in and we came away with, and we were like,
I think I remember seeing a lot on social media, on Facebook at the time, people on Facebook Live going, look at this! People
Yeah.
filming it going, look at this!
I think so,
I've
yeah,
got
yeah.
turned up to this wedding fair, which have always been quite traditional, haven't they?
yes,
Go with your mum, you have a glass.
yeah.
And all of a sudden, you guys come out.
And it was literally carnage. And then, because of the success of it, of what the engagement was, social media was just, it wasn't new, but it definitely, people were starting to use it a little bit
Yeah,
more.
it's growing.
And Tatton wanted us back every year at that point, and obviously through that you meet the venues. So we started to speak to wedding venues. So we speak to Colshire Hall, not Merrydale, they weren't a thing at the time. Delamere Manor. So we
Petford, Nunsmere, a place like
yeah,
that,
we
wasn't it? Yeah.
because they were all exhibitors,
Yeah.
and they wanted us on their supplier list at that point. So we were made the connections in the space of a weekend.
And not only did you get those 4,000 inquiries, which is ridiculous, but you're meeting the
It was
venues
the
and
venues.
the suppliers and the
It
connections
was the
there as
venues,
well.
but because it was
Yeah.
done in a very big way, and by big, the space was big, the production was big, the show was big. It could have gone the other way. It could have. Our music was very.
You could have had somebody come over and say, you can't do this.
Yeah.
But I like the fact you went in there and broke the rules a
We
little
broke all the rules.
bit. Yeah, excellent.
And that was probably it. But up until that point, we were heavy club.
Was that your launch pad then for
That
weddings?
was the launch pad. That was
So
it.
we always say about wedding fairs, you got to do the right ones. And it's not necessarily about getting inquiries or bookings on the wedding fair. It's meeting the other people and creating the networks.
100%. I
You
agree with
smash
that.
both of those things.
It's interesting,
on
isn't it?
that one
Because
wedding fair.
I would never do a big wedding fair like Tatton. It's because of the cost, and there's loads of suppliers vying for the same eyeballs, and it's a huge kind of.
Yeah.
It's just not what I want to do.
It's
But
not the sort of thing I do. But I think his show lends to it. And
yeah, big time.
Well,
Yeah.
it was
shows
at that
it can
point
work
as well.
too.
So I know at that point, then we met Red from Matt Floral at that
Yeah,
one
yeah.
weekend. And
Matt,
then,
Matt from Red Floral.
yeah,
Matt,
yeah, and then that became a thing. So there was a brand partnership there, and every year when we did Tatton up until, I know Tatton's not a thing anymore, but that Red Floral 615 stand became. It just got big. Me and
what
Matt,
did you do there? Did you share a stand with him?
we
then,
ended
or-
up sharing a stand and building all the production into
okay.
his but the space got, every year it was like we want to do bigger and better than last year. We want to do bigger and better than last year. And it just became, in the end, this massive... Matt went, you know what Matt's like, super creative.
Yeah.
Matt went crazy with his. We went crazy with ours. And in the last one we did, it was massive.
Yeah.
And it definitely became about the show and the statement and the ability to do that than it probably was about... Yes, the sax percussion piece and how we delivered it was the icing on the cake piece, but it visually, before that even started, it was.
This is so
That's
good.
just the 10% cherry on the cake, isn't
Yes.
it? It's like, it's good that you brought up Matt, because Matt, Red Floral Florist, they've kind of done a similar thing to you guys in that they're not just a florist. They've gone. I mean, Matt just goes ridiculous with his with his creations, and it creates a big production from a floral point of view visually.
Yeah.
So same for him, I guess, with Tatton walking in and you seeing this big floral thing, and you guys, and all of a sudden it's like, what? This is what weddings can be.
Yes, I think
And
it was a
It
special...
connects them two brands, doesn't it? And they're both real good quality, and they're coming together to deliver that experience.
But it's the same. It's all of it together with the right sort of styling at the wedding. It creates an experience, an environment, so that, and now to the point now, the high end weddings have got, it's always you guys and 615
Yeah.
And Red Floral.
and the same
Yeah.
Red Floral and the same sort of stylists at the same sort of venues,
Yeah.
because that it's just the production and the experience that it creates.
And that's where, you know, when you look at what definitely worked for us at the time, there was the meeting the venues, but there's collabing with other businesses
Yeah.
that became huge. And that doesn't mean you collab with everybody. There has to be, the core part of the brand needs to align
Yeah,
on
of
both
course,
sides. And Matt is one of my good friends, but
Yeah,
he's
you've got
he's
very similar
creative. And I said to you
trajectories,
before
haven't you?
this podcast, aside from the business that's grown out of what's developed, I'm a rubbish people manager.
Yeah.
I know that my skill set is creative. I like to look at a space and go, right, how do we make that from nothing? And there's a number of different things that go into doing that. And that was where me and Matt, with his brand and our brand, just totally aligned. Like the neighbourhood thing, just totally aligned. So collaboration, if you can find the right ones.
And it's a really
can
good
be
friendship,
huge.
isn't it? So he's always going to recommend you, and you're always going to
Yeah.
recommend them, you know, and
Yeah.
it's the ongoing relationship which keeps people at the top without a doubt, and getting the right gigs all the time.
Yeah.
It's collabing and having relationships and friends who are smashing it
Yeah.
and who are good quality at what they do, because
Yeah.
your brands align with each
It's
other.
the brand
So
alignment.
you're going to recommend each other forever, aren't you?
Yeah, and then the thing that comes from that is ultimately it just needs to be for the right product for the right bride. So it's just emotionally connecting with, if you want the nuts party that's going to go off, it's big. 615's your piece, but you know, in the same way that you talk about your floral piece, that Matt is the same in his world. But that's not for everybody, and that's okay.
It's not, because I've spoke to couples before now that have
Yeah.
said, "Oh yeah, we've seen all that, and it's just it's not us. We just want something
And that's
subtle and
where-
small and like." But for the people that do want it,
And it's just about finding that
Ideal client,
emotional the emotional connection with the right people.
Yeah, and we can touch on a bit more about finding the right clients. I mean, we know the connections that you create and the networks you create will bring those people to you if they're the right connections. But I tell you what, going back to that Tatton part, you had all them bookings. You said of 3 years worth of stuff, and they're all going to be in good venues. And a lot of them are going to be for great couples. You've smashed it in one hit there, because that 3 years worth of weddings, you're actively out working in top weddings.
Yeah,
People are going to see you. They're going to tell their friends about it.
yeah.
What a springboard that was for you.
It was the.
I'll maybe ask you off, because I'm
It
sure
was
if Tatton want to know how
I
much these things
remember-
cost, but it was a big investment.
It was
and
a
absolutely
huge,
paid off.
huge investment, and I'm sure Tatton won't mind me saying this because it's no longer a thing. But what we brought to that show, probably after the second year, we bought that much. They gave us a space for free.
Right, it's amazing.
Because we were bringing people coming to see the 615 and Red Floral thing.
You became one of the reasons why people would go to the Tatton Park show.
And so the first one we did it was definitely
a ticketed event.
Yeah. And the first one we did was huge risk from every single perspective. The cost of it was phenomenal. We had a big business loan sat for all the kit that we bought to make it happen.
Yeah.
The type of sound systems that we bought were all inspired from the clubs. So we don't just use small, it has to be the bigger stuff because there's that club link with the brand. So all the clubs that I played at in Ibiza, and we've gone with the big.
Had to be the best kit.
It had to be that type of kit because that's what we were bringing. And I remember me and Tom sitting there going, this could be the end of us or the making. And we had like I said, a loan round our neck.
Was it scary?
Yeah, and the show, the stand was mega expensive.
Everything had to work though. You had to make sure there was enough people there at the event.
Yeah.
I think it was a really good calculated risk though.
Yes.
Not like you're just chucking money at something
No.
hoping something's going to stick. You knew the venue was amazing. There's going to be brilliant people in that room exhibiting themselves.
Yeah.
And you're going to hopefully get a higher end type of client that's going to be able to afford your services. And they all seem to go to that Tatton Park show.
Yeah, and I think
so calculated risk.
Calculated risk, and also I know when you talked before about different operators, I also know the amount of work that goes in behind the scenes before you get to an event. So talking about music and all those things, we have that many conversations about it all the time. We knew that it was different. We believe, and ultimately
belief.
There was massive belief at the time between everybody that was involved. Even Kim, that still works with us 10 years later, was there from day one. Kim used to work for us. We couldn't even pay her in the early days. She just loved everything that it was about and came and worked for us for free, and we were trying to pay her where we could, and that turned into a full-time job for Kim.
Excellent, yeah.
But everybody had the belief at the time.
Was that the one where you had all the cars going down the drive and
that was year 3.
That was year 3.
That was year 3. Yeah. So then you start to get a bit more creative with how you position it. So we thought, right, we can do the stand. Then we teamed with Red, and then as Instagram and social media started to grow, we wanted to get more creative with the content. So this is where we were trying to get a bit of that experience that people were experiencing in person across on socials. So we had the smart cars and we drove them like it was. The inspiration was the Italian Job.
Oh right, okay.
So we had the 615 cars. We had a unit in Kirkham, not far from here. It was under an archway, so we drove them out of the unit. We set off at 3 a.m. in the morning. We all met there, and we had a full storyboard for that video. We drove there. We had people hanging out the back of cars with cameras while we were driving down the roads. And
you're talking about making like a promo video there out of it. But like with everything that you've done, it wasn't just a little promo video. It was next level production.
It had to be. we were thinking about what it could be. We thought we had to do more than just point a camera and capture.
Yeah.
So we did Italian Job reference and.
Well, what you're doing there is you're going the extra mile to really show off your brand and make it a recognisable brand.
Yeah.
That video, I remember seeing that video loads of times on
Everything you
socials.
do is high-end, top-level production.
It's getting the attention onto your brand.
Yeah.
And you do that perfectly. And I remember seeing them cars thinking, what's he doing now? Look at him, what are they doing with these cars? But it just, stuff like that. It's a bit like Ellie, really, isn't it? Although she's more personal branding, but with the cars, she gets all logoed up, Ellie Sachs, and it sticks in your mind. You remember the brand, don't you?
Yeah.
And so cool.
It's risky in terms of cost.
That's the piece. Everything in our business becomes a.
But the bigger you go, the more of a statement you're making. And
it's you are constantly, for us to deliver anything, the cost is a massive factor because it isn't just, we can't just, me and Cammy can't just rock up and you can't. You need a team.
Yeah, it's everything that goes on behind the scenes, the music production. I don't know how closely you work with your clients, but I'm sure you do, where you get not a brief, but an idea from them of what they want to achieve, how do they want it to feel, what sort of music do they want?
Absolutely.
Or what sort of music are they expecting?
Yeah.
And you just deliver that for them.
Absolutely.
There's so much stuff goes into
Well,
it. You don't just turn up, play sax and go home.
No. And I always remember when we set the business up, we didn't really have a reference point as to what good or bad looked like. I've always been into fashion, and I used to always remember, right,
Even with that haircut?
yeah, it needs a haircut. I need a haircut. But I always remember thinking, right, if 615 was a fashion label, what would I want it to be? And I always wanted it to be a Harrods, Selfridges experience than, as much as great brands they are, as a Zara cheaper experience, because as good as they both are, they both made me feel two very different ways. One made me feel really stressed and anxious when I was walking around because there was clothes everywhere and the queues were everywhere, whereas one was a bit more premium and it thought about how you felt. The queues weren't as big because there were multiple queues. So we definitely used references in different worlds to try and form what this brand was.
This is really interesting because I actually wrote this down last night. I put on here, there was a very obvious brand change from Daxon Sax to 615.
Yeah.
So I think the question is, was that deliberate? And I suppose why, but you kind of answered it there. Because when you were back in the other days, you had the big quiff and you had the 3-piece suits.
Yeah.
Really sharp suits, and you looked amazing.
Yeah.
But there was that time where it switched, and you went, should we say, cool.
Yeah.
On trend.
Yeah.
Fashion.
Yeah.
And it all tied in together really, really, really well.
And
is that a real deliberate thing to use that? Right, I need to switch out from this suit. I need to go that direction.
It was probably situational. And you have to probably remember this journey that I went on. I was a young boy, lived in Blackpool all my life, went and did a degree, and then I met Tom, who's now my business partner. That threw me into a city centre environment, and then when you are around people like that, image is everything. And because we had delivered this product for neighbourhood, people loved it, they emotionally connected with it, and I had to change the image thing just to become part of
You've got to fit into
what it needed to be. And I guess that's where that brand collaboration there was so important, because not only did it create Neighbourhood, the business that they had, also created our business. And there was this double piece where they both started at the same time. You were in a venue that was all about image, how you looked, and I'm not. There's definitely
trendy clientele.
There's
show off
downsides
element
to that. There's definite downsides, but image was a huge thing. And it became a brand.
So you were thinking about that, right? We need to change our image. And that's where we need to be. Perfect.
And it all aligned, and I guess you said before, timing was everything. All of those things happened at the same time.
It's amazing how the world changes to give you what you want. It's amazing.
It was a combination of a number of things that all pretty much happened. Because when we did Tatton, you've got to remember, we were doing Neighbourhood at that time, and everybody wanted to get into Neighbourhood, and there was a queue round the block round Neighbourhood every Friday and Saturday. Nobody could get in there, but they knew that 615 were the ones doing all the music and the entertainment, and then the next minute we're at the Tatton Wedding Fair. So it was a special moment. It was a really bizarre thing.
Epic stuff. So I just want to touch on clients then. Because you've been thrust into great venues. You've got the right clients in front of you who can afford to pay for what you do, but also understand it and will invest into it. And as years go by, some things have to change and adjust a little bit. What are you doing anything actively to try and put yourself or find those ideal clients, so you know you're going to get the inquiries you are going to get are going to be from pretty much 75%? They are going to be the right clients. Do you actively do anything for that, or is it just kind of happen naturally with the way that you've...
It does happen naturally. I think the way 615's definitely developed beyond a wedding business now, and if I was to try and explain what that business now is, we are experience experts. I probably would try and explain it as best I can. So having affiliations with businesses outside of the wedding industry is probably what fuels the wedding and private event business, because we don't just operate now in the wedding industry. We still have ties with high-end hospitality.
Yeah.
We will always have that tie, and the work we do there is not just about me going and playing my sax, which the brand started with. It's about how do we change the way people feel, and as long as the brand alignment with the clients sits in the right place and the brand's getting the exposure that it needs, we find there's a natural link between we love that, but we want a version of that for the wedding.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Weddings are just a small part of what you're doing these days. Like you say,
but those
high-end you guys deliver an experience.
But we know that a wedding client will go, say, to one of our gym clients. They will go to the same hospitality venues. So you've got to work out what these people want from different parts of their life, and we're kind of involved in different parts of what they do.
You're in loads of different sectors. So just to touch on one, you obviously do a lot with David Lloyd Gyms.
Yeah.
Now, David Lloyd Gyms are premium gyms for busy professional people.
Yeah.
They're the sort of people whose weddings you want to get.
Yeah.
So it's putting himself in the right positions to get those
they're the
right
sort
clients.
of the professionals, young, like motivated, whatever you want to, like stereotypical. They go to nice gyms and they've got probably got a bit of money.
Yeah.
So they're gonna be having those types of weddings.
And I think it's looking at your client and going, how does the client live their life and what do they value? There's that type of client. Not everybody's like that. Somebody maybe go and use a different gym operator for a different reason and have different values. So it's just tapping into how somebody lives their life and where do they go to eat, where do they go and work out, what do they like, and how can we as a brand make them feel good. And we've just naturally slotted into the premium
the weddings
market.
come off the back now of everything else that you're doing. So all the other stuff that you're doing outside of the industry then just feeds back into
and
weddings.
we still have great relationships with core venues and core suppliers, which I think we'll always have. But it's definitely the work outside now that
it's another pillar to your marketing. Really, it's another place to get gigs.
One thing I wanted to ask, because you've done a lot of weddings with press, like OK Magazine, Hello Magazine, you've featured on celebrity weddings. Do you find that doing all that other stuff in all these different sectors, does that get you onto the more sort of the celebrity work, the weddings that are going to appear in magazines and stuff?
I probably haven't got an answer for that. I think
you're in with a lot of planners and
we do the planner piece.
How did you get into that world?
Back to the point before, I think it's having ultimate belief in what you do and how you deliver it. And I've always believed that we're bringing a show that nobody else. I'll believe that in 10, 15 years, even probably when it's not a thing. But I've had this sometimes very intense belief that I know and I believe that the show. And I think if you have that inner belief, you can quite quickly make other people buy into that.
Yeah, if you believe and you're creating something ultra special and you've got that massive belief in it, it's going to be polished, it's going to be perfect.
Yeah.
You're going to...
I also think, to answer your question in another way, I think our links through our social hospitality circles has also fueled that. So I look at, and I know I don't mean to bang on about the same venue multiple times, but Neighbourhood, when it was a thing, everybody wanted to be there.
Everyone wants to be,
My network came from that venue.
And you were plonked right in the middle of it. It's
we
perfect.
Were right
now,
epicenter.
Talking about celebrities.
If you're in the right places in the high end venues, people will find you then.
Yeah. And the other thing is, the market's very different now compared to what it was then. The whole experiential thing was completely new then, and it's not the same anymore. It's totally different.
Back then, people wanted to book a sax player or book a DJ. They weren't thinking about, I'm booking an experience.
Yes.
As now, I think they definitely are.
Yeah.
I think social media has played a part in that.
Yeah, I do. I think I still think people want to look at content online, and not they're going to feel exactly the same way as they would if they were in person, but you still want to kind of feel a certain way.
People, because of video content and social media and reels, people are exposed to a lot more possibilities, aren't they?
Absolutely, and the competition, we've certainly seen that, is a lot more than it ever used to be. But I think as long as you stick true to how you deliver things, there's a point of difference. Our point of difference has always been the show. That's where we try and position that, and there's a number of things that go into making that a thing. But yeah, I think that point of difference, brand, understanding your core brand principles, really important, and making sure it's delivered through everything. So I know 615 feels right when it's on a wedding, but it also feels right when you look at it on Instagram. If we do a wedding fair, it's going to feel exactly the same. It has to be.
Yeah.
So it's understanding the brand. Brand for me is key.
Going back to like marketing and setting your business up, I've always said you should always have, not just one offering, there should be multiple offerings, or at least 3 different offerings of what you do. What I like about you guys is you've got the biggest offering. You can spend a fortune with you.
Yes.
But that's brilliant, because if you didn't have that extra thing there, nobody would ever book it.
Yeah.
But you're giving your client the option to go all out. That's our top package. It's going to cost them a hell of a lot of money.
Yeah.
But if you want to go there, that's it. We've got it. We can cater for your needs. And I think sometimes people, they don't have that extra thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But I meant to mention this years ago. I always personally wanted to be a bit more expensive than anybody who I thought was my competition, and sometimes maybe twice as much. And I'm pretty sure that helps me get more bookings sometimes.
Yeah.
And that's massive for you guys, because you can go there. That's your standard kind of 615 experience, which is amazing. But we can go here if you like.
I think the thing that filters through all of those price points, the ethos behind all of them is still the same. So even though the sound system on maybe our entry level isn't as big as but it's still thought about.
Yeah.
So the thought process behind all of it is still. So we know the client's still getting the ultimate experience at whatever price point. It's a quality offering. It's a club-esque offering.
Yeah.
And to deliver that, we know we need a production team to do all the setups. It's big kit. It's not small.
Yeah.
It's big. The kit can be quite big, and the staging's huge, and all those types of things, and it's heavy.
So what you're saying, no matter what price point people are coming in at, what budget they've got, it's still going to be.
It's going to be quality.
Yes.
A quality immersive.
I'm referring
experience.
to a gig that I think you did at a venue where you literally changed the venue. You went into a room. It wasn't the same room when you guys had set up. It was like they booked the ultimate thing, and there was even the chairs and the tables and the girls walking around.
We had the booths, the sit. It was
whoa.
Yeah.
So I love that you can go to whatever level a client wants to go.
Yeah.
And you can offer that. I think that's, why would you not? It's brilliant. Yeah.
As you've over the years built out, we talked about the journey of 615, but obviously it was you and Tom at the start.
Yeah.
How did you start to then build the team? Because now, how many staff have you got now?
22.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's grown a lot. And how did you start to? At what point did you go, right, we need to bring people in?
I think for me and Tom, it's always been weighing up the creative ability against what a business needs day in, day out. So because we've both been we were always so active, we were the product at points, and the business needed certain things to happen. So for me, back to core brand belief, customer service, I knew clients would need more communication than what I was prepared to be able to give them on my own, because if I'm getting in at 3 and 4 in the morning, which pre-COVID was a thing every week, I couldn't come back to people, and I would be annoyed with myself if I looked at that and went, well, that's not right. But just because it was fitting onto my terms doesn't mean it's right for the client. So we quickly learned that when you start, if you've got that brand kind of understanding of what's important, so we have a team that looks after the events booking, so that's the dealing with the inquiries that come in, and then obviously networking and making sure we're keeping relationships alive with venues, planners, all that type of thing. Because the business needed more than what me and Tom could give it on the day to day to actually work. Especially in particular, really, for the clients, because I didn't want clients waiting longer than 24 hours for a response. It was really important for us that it was quick, because I just think for us that was particularly important. So I think it's understanding what your strengths are and being realistic about what you can and can't do.
And your drawbacks, and going, no, that's not one of my strengths. I need to get someone in.
My strength and I've learnt this more recently, is as this team's grown, we've grown phenomenally out the back of COVID, and that's because of the work we're doing outside of the wedding industry that's allowed that growth to happen. My role in this business is creative and brand.
So that's the question, really, because you've touched on there. You've brought in, you've expanded your team for the inquiries and the admin type of things. How did you go about growing your creative team, and what was that sort of process?
Really interesting. I definitely
by that I mean your other sax players, your other DJs, your artists, your music producers.
It starts with a really clear conversation about what they want and what we want.
Did you advertise for that sort of role? Or
we've definitely done. We did music colleges. We went round music colleges. We always looked for artists that probably necessarily weren't typical sax players or typical artists. We always looked for people that loved the music more than the playing, because
important for the brand, I would imagine.
So there was definitely not a requirement, but if you look at how people learn to play instruments, you generally coming from a classical background, you are not coming from this world. You've got to adapt into this world, and it's like polar opposites of the scale.
You need personalities, you need
personality. More about the performance piece than it is about being the most technically gifted sax player, for example. Because I know a lot of those that are far more gifted than I am, but it became more about probably the love for the music as well, and actually loving what you're playing, so you can deliver that to who you're kind of servicing, whether it's a wedding client or a private event client. But then the other side of it, we've always been big on artist development. So we hold sessions in this office regularly. So Cami, who is also a director within the business, there's a lot of work goes on around how to help these people from a performance perspective, how to listen to the music, how to, we like to try and pair people up so that they've got regular people that they work with instead of random DJs and saxes, because I think the partnership is important.
Chemistry, and
you start to learn the chemistry between the artists, and that's quite important.
Do they ever come to you? Do you get people knocking on your door saying we want to be part of this?
All the time.
Is it right?
But because of where we position in the market, it has to be right. So we do have an academy piece that we have within the business that will work with artists for a period of time.
You're training people up.
So. We have that embedded in the business. We have artists coming here all the time. So Jasper, who works with us, for us, helps with that. Cammy's at the helm of that side of it. So we do have an academy within the business designed to. That doesn't always mean to say the artist is the right fit, because it's got to be the right fit for them and the brand.
Yeah.
But where it works out well, it generally.
I think if they've got that passion at the beginning, that real passion for the music, like you say, and they're a creative type of person, they just need that little bit of training to come into your world, into your brand, and then they'll be smashing.
It's great that you offer that for their development, but also then does it help with the trust element then? If you've trained them and you know that they're then right, and
it comes with its challenges. It comes with its challenges, but I think as long as you always have honest, open communication, which generally speaking we've always had, I actually don't think you have a problem. So as long as you can maintain integrity, honesty, and have a real clear line of communication to voice any, problems, or if somebody wants to go and do something that's necessarily different to what we do as a brand, as long as the lines of communication are there, and everybody's being honest, I actually don't think you have an issue. I think you've got to maintain some core.
I suppose the last thing you don't want is one of your DJs going out and going on a completely different tangent and doing his own thing. And because who knows what could happen.
It does become a challenge, but generally speaking, I know we, are trying to give advice, trying to better people, and in the long run, for any problems that we do have of that type of nature, we have far more successes than we do issues. So you weigh it up.
You're going to get people that will come and grow
100%.
and come and go and
and that
reach a different turning
that's
point and go,
happen.
I want to do my own thing now.
And that's going to happen. I think the key thing is honesty and communication, open lines of communication with any of your team members, all the way through, right from the ground all the way through to the top, is the key, really.
Couple of questions that we always end on for all the guests. Do you want to ask what would you do one?
Go on then.
So we always ask everyone if
you ask it then.
in the wedding industry still, but if you weren't doing what you're doing, what would you do as a different role within the wedding industry?
Within the wedding industry.
Within the wedding
so
industry.
Just to give you a few examples
and sax and stuff, what would you do? So like,
Anything.
I'd like to have been a DJ if I was doing
What other role do you think you'd like to do?
Question.
What have you been doing it? Where do you thought, I could do that? I quite like.
Would you even want to be in the wedding industry?
Yes.
You've got to say yes, because you don't want to piss off the wedding world, do you?
I would, because then when you find your place in it, I think it wraps its arms around you and welcomes you.
It's a great world.
And I do believe that. I think when you find your place, the challenge is finding your place and your fit. But I think when you find your place within it,
I found my place in weddings, and it wrapped its arms around me, and I just went with it, and it just felt right. So it's great. It's a great world to be in.
And I think if it feels right, the industry has an innate ability to wrap its arms around those people, and build community within that as well. And I think one of if I look back at our business, and I will answer your question in a second, because we have diversified the business in other areas, and our strategy is probably very different to a typical wedding operator. We probably aren't as embedded into the wedding community as certain people, because our focus certainly strategy is very different. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because we always say
you're not fully in the wedding world, are you?
Yeah,
not fully, but we are.
But you are. But just
and we always will be, but we attack. Our strategy is very different.
Yeah. Okay.
But in answer to your question, what would I do? I would probably do. Oh, this sounds really naff.
Anything, doesn't matter.
I feel like, because I'm a creative person, it would have to be something like floristry.
I think so.
Yeah, because I get a kick out of making something happen from nothing, and that gives you the same ability to do that. You can go into a white room and
transform
it from something. That's where my passion and buzz comes from. So do I have a passion for flowers? No, not at all. But the ability to do that, that's what I get the kick off.
Yeah, transforming that space.
Yeah.
The other thing we always ask people is what is your most like craziest wedding story that you guys must see a lot at the end of the night.
Grief.
You know, is there anything that
Which
stands
ones
out?
can I say? Which ones can I can't?
You can say anything.
It can be
There's
embarrassing
no
on
censor.
your part, or it can just be a wild, crazy thing
I
that
have
a guest
got
has
one.
done.
I have got one. So there was a wedding, and it actually resulted in a bit of an injury for me. It was a nightmare, but it was very embarrassing. So I did a wedding at Colshire Hall, and at Colshire they've got a big stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we have all the kit set up on the stage.
Perfect for you guys, yeah.
Perfect. As you'll both know, and we've discussed, the show is everything. So when I came on, I don't just go, there's a lot that happens. The intro track started, the lights started, everything. I literally jumped into the middle of the stage and I fell off the stage. Literally, but my knee, I actually really severely injured my knee, but I remember falling off and I carried on for the whole 15 minutes, but to have that happen instantly.
That was your introduction.
As my intro, and
Welcome to the stage. That's sax.
Bang, and I fell in front, and there was 100 people looking at me.
Did you jump up?
Did you style it out? Yeah.
Carried on.
Yeah,
styled it out.
Yeah. I mean, I actually went to hospital after that because it was that bad. But I fell off the stage in front of 100 people on.
Yeah, it's
the
right
intro. It was the worst.
Take it, your
worst
sax
timing.
you didn't damage your saxophone.
Yeah.
Did you save your sax?
Yeah, I always do. I've got
like a baby. You turned in and took it on your back.
Because when we are entertainment, we get involved with the crowd. So I've kind of now navigated over 10 years. People just nobody knock your sax and it like hits you in the mouth. I've got a kind of a way of.
You found your rhythm.
Yeah. Even if it's knocking people out of the way. But yeah, that was the most.
When the videographer's in your face like this.
Yeah.
I've injured myself on loads of weddings. Pulled my calf mid-set, sitting on a chair and the legs going and falling flat on the arm.
Yeah.
And you just make a bit of a joke about it. I mean, I think
I actually remember one with you, and I don't know if I hope you won't mind me saying it, but we did a wedding together.
Go on.
Your pants split.
Yeah.
I've split my
That used to
pants.
happen all the time. Yeah.
I remember that.
It's not happened since I've lost a bit of weight though. It's when I was a bit tubby. I was a bit tubby at one stage in my career. And I remember because I black gaffer tape.
Yeah. I remember it well.
It's never good.
Can you leave us a question for the next guest?
Wedding business related-ish.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I've got a question. If you were to start your business again in the wedding industry, what one thing would you do differently to what you did in your journey to date?
Got it. I like that one.
Nice.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Okay.
Ooh,
That'll
that's
be
going to
good.
be fun. We've not
That'll
set
be
up
good.
our next one yet, have we?
Dax from 615.
Mate.
Thank you very much.
It's been a mega.
Thank you. Do you know what?
So
I was
good.
quite nervous because I said to you before, I've not done, but I've really enjoyed it.
You were great, mate. It was brilliant.
It
I
was
really enjoyed it.
Cheers.
And thank you both for your time.
Yeah, interesting journey, man. Interesting
Cool.
journey. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for sharing it with us, mate. We
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Alright.
Yes. Peace out.
Bye. Music. Fade
Music,
out.
Fade out. Fade out.
Russell Papers, Anchorman. So thanks so much for listening. We really hope that you found this episode insightful, inspirational, and if you did enjoy that, then please consider subscribing to us wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify. We're a Think Wedding Business.
We're also on YouTube and Instagram. So if you want to watch us, you can go over to YouTube and find us at Think Wedding Business. and the same over on Instagram to keep up with all of our future episodes.
We'd really love you to subscribe and join us on this journey. And if you do like this content, please consider giving us a 5-star review. It just helps us get seen and helps spread the word.
So thanks again for listening,
Wings
and we'll see you
out.
next time.
Bye-bye.